Hi, this is the third in a series of videos I'm doing in building a easy peasy task list. What I did last time is I built a persistence. I was looking at using CRUD, and so I built a small app that exercised the CRUD functionality with Application Craft. With this particular video, I'm going to be testing that persistence work. And I'm doing that in my step 3 unit test application. So let's look at how I built this and what it is. First off, how I'm approaching this is I'm going to have an embedded app, my step 2 persistence app, and I'll be in this top box here having the results of running integration and unit test. So let's kind of see how this is all laid out first. Let's go to the Explorer, and in the page for this, you can look at the preload files for the application. And I'm using QUnit. QUnit was written initially by John Resick, the guy that wrote jQuery. So there's only two things you need. You need the QUnit JavaScript and the QUnit CSS, and that'll give you the styling and the functionality. Now the way I'm approaching this is this bottom box here is my embedded app. If you go into the toolbox and you look at the advanced components, you'll see an embedded app. You just drop that on the page, and then there's a embedded app option that when you select that, it shows you all the apps in your repository, and you pick the one that you want. In this case, I picked step 2. So now when I run my step 3 application in this embedded app window, we'll be running the app 2. It's pretty cool. So that gives me a whole lot of functionality, but we'll get to that in a second. Now this top this top component is an HTML component. HTML is just a common. You can drop it on, and then you have the source code for that HTML code. Now here's what I'm using. The header says QUnit Test Suite, and you can see the value back there. The banner is going to show us green or red, depending upon if the tests pass or fail. Then there's a toolbar, and unfortunately we're not seeing the values that should be in the toolbar. I don't know why. There's also a user agent heading, and we should see that I'm running it in Chrome, but for some reason it doesn't show up, and I think it has to do with the state of the browser when the jQuery or the QUnit loads or something. I'm not sure what it is. I couldn't figure it out. So if anybody figures it out, I appreciate leaving a comment. The test result is the summary of all the tests. Now, none of these values do I interact with directly. The QUnit JavaScript class will work with these values and set the results, the summary results. And then this OL QUnit test, that'll be all the different tests that run. And I think we have 4. And then there's a fixture here. I'm not using that fixture, but what it is it's a place that you can add and attach say components or DOM elements, and those values that are in that QUnit fixture will get cleared out every time a new test runs. So it's kind of a way to set up a place where it's clean each run of the test, new test. So I set up the HTML editor. Now one of the things I had to do is I had to set the resizing to allow me to resize the tests, because if the tests fail, if you don't have a resize, you can't. I haven't figured out how to scroll through and see all the values. So I figured out if I put the resizing, that would take care of the ability to look at tests when they fail. So now I have my application set up. I'm pulling in QUnit. I have my HTML results for the QUnit test, and now I want to look at the code. We're not going to look at a lot of the code right now. You want to go to my blog and read that, but we'll take a look. First off, on the testing page, I am using the embedded on start. So if we go back to the design, when this embedded starts, you can look at the event on start, that's when my test will start to run. I want to wait until that embedded app is running before I start interacting with it. So what you see here is just all the different tests that we have. I have 4 tests. The first one is a very simple one. It just calls a client-side function. The second one calls a server-side function, multiple server-side functions, and confirms that they're operating correctly. The third one is doing some client-side and server-side combination, calling the server, getting some data, then calling a client and validating that the client-side function works properly with the data provided by the server-side. And then the last test is working with the UI and actually running 20 CRUD tests and confirming that it runs under 2 seconds. So let's go ahead and just run it, and then we'll go through the code in the blog, and it'll be a lot easier there. So let's just go live. Got to save it first, and we'll go live. And here's the QUnit. It's starting to print out that it's running some tests. Now these are all run in parallel unless you tell it not to. So the first 2 tests finished. The client-side function was complete. Testing the log was complete. And then we just did the fill of the Zinger chart, and we ran 20 tests under 2 seconds. So the 0 is how many failures there were. 1 is how many tests you ran and how many of them were successful. So we had no failures. We ran 1, 3, 7, and 3, and all of them passed. So you have a summary here where the 14 tests of 14 passed, and the whole thing ran in 15 seconds. It takes a little while. You have to wait. You have to kind of do these timeouts to allow the visual components to render and get the results and get the values and stuff. But I think it's a reasonable way to do your testing with Application Craft. I look forward to hearing feedback from people to see what they're doing, but this is what I found will work for me, and I don't have to go to a external product to do this and have code maintenance somewhere else and all that. I do all my testing right inside of Application Craft using Application Craft. So for more information, more insight about how this test was built and what it's doing, please look at my blog, and I'll have that in the notes with the description of the video. Thanks.